Welcome to Litsoc, everybody. It's Thursday. Last week's is up on YouTube with all that we read over the summer. Well, not all of it, but edited highlights, let's put it like that, from our own mouths, not from Mr. Fisk's edit. Okay, so today Mr. Humphreys is going to be talking about Katherine Rundell, who is basically extraordinary. She writes for children, she writes for scholarly adults, she writes for those who are interested in all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. She's a great climber. If you've read Rooftoppers, you will have gathered that. And she became one of the youngest fellows ever at All Souls College, which is a very beautiful college in Oxford. And as you can see, it has lots of towers, and there's a big tradition at Oxford of climbing all over the roofs, and she certainly went in for that, even though it's not really acceptable behaviour. Anyway, so Mr. Humphreys is also talking about one of her extraordinary books, not necessarily for
not for Key Stage 3, perhaps. Key Stage 3,
but Super Infinite, which is about John Donne, who was an enfant terrible and wonderful poet, but also extraordinary contemporary of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And if you go to St Paul's Cathedral, you can see a statue of him in the last months of his life. So, Mr. Humphreys, over to you.
Thank you, Miss Huntley. Am I moving into the armchair?
Yeah, of course you can.
Of course you can. Yeah,
I'll swap
absolutely.
seats with you, in fact.
Yeah, you can go over there.
Okay.
And I'll have an empty seat next to me here. That's fine. Oops. Okay. Right, Katherine Rundell. So that is a name I'm sure most of you will have heard. Can I just quickly ask who's read some Katherine Rundell? Yeah? Most hands? Yeah, I think Rooftoppers is probably the most famous one here because it's studied at Year 7. But yeah, she's a great author. Now, I haven't actually got Rooftoppers here. I've got most of her books here. The reason I've got Rooftoppers is that it is not available in the library. It's very, very popular and constantly out on loan, which tells you all you need to know. So she's quite a recent author. She's only been an author for about 10 years or so. She's only got about half a dozen books, but I think she's already established herself as one of the finest writers of children's fiction today. Don't take my word for it. Names. So here we go. Neil Gaiman has said that she's a phenomenon, and we all love Neil Gaiman, don't we? And he's one of my favourite authors, if not my favourite author. Yeah, we certainly do. Philip Pullman says that she's wonderful. Jacqueline Wilson says that she's fantastic. And then Michael Morpurgo said there was Tolkien, there is Pullman, and now there is Katherine Rundell. Wondrous invention, marvellous writing. So this is the sort of bracket she belongs in. This is the league she belongs in, okay? So she's already approaching all-time great status. So why? Well, she's a wonderful author, and I'm going to delve into the books in a bit more detail in a minute. I'm going to talk about her a bit first. Now, Miss Huntley already alluded to the fact that she likes climbing. So she's had quite an orthodox, adventurous kind of upbringing. She was born in Kent in 1987, but she spent most of her childhood in Zimbabwe. And the reason she did was because her father was a diplomat there. Okay. And then when she was 14, she moved to Brussels, and then she went to the UK to study at Oxford, and that's where she first got her interest in climbing rooftops for Rooftoppers. And she still occasionally does that to this day. She does sometimes sneak out after hours when no one is around and climb up onto the roofs of the university there. So, and yeah, Miss Huntley's already said that she became a Fellow of English Literature at All Souls College, which paved the way for her eventual thesis on John Donne, and with that, this book. Well, I'll return to that book later.
Climbing is quite interesting because it's an Oxford tradition.
Yes, that's where she got the idea from. There was a book written by, I can't remember, but it was about the climbing of the roofs.
That's right, but that's
what inspired her.
It appears in Endeavour, in Morse,
yep,
and in Lewis as well. There's always quite often, well, not quite often, but there's this thread of rooftop disasters or
yeah, more certainly. I remember one of the episodes wasn't one of the murders that happened on a rooftop.
Endeavour, there's a very
Endeavour, was it?
There's a very serious incident in the rooftop, yeah, and and also somebody climbing falls to their death. As well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where she got some inspiration from for Rooftopers. She is a very active person. She always starts the day as well with a cartwheel. And the reason she starts her day with a cartwheel is because she says she likes to tip the world in the head and look at it in a different way, which is a big thing in her books, as I'll talk about. So, so her first book isn't Rooftopers. I think there's a misconception that it is, because that's the one that sort of made a name. Her first book is actually this. It's called The Girl Savage. Oh, right. Okay. Now, the main character of this is a girl called Wilhelmina, sorry. And she is growing up in Africa. So this is very much thinly veiled autobiography, writing what you know. And her idyllic world, roaming around the plains of Africa, is shattered when she suddenly is shipped off to England and has to go to boarding school. And on the blurb it says, lions and hyenas are nothing compared to packs of schoolgirls. Any comments, schoolgirls? No, just shocked look of horror on our face. Okay. So now she said of her time at that school, in Zimbabwe, school ended every day at 1 o'clock. I didn't wear shoes, and there was none of the teenage culture that exists in Europe. My friends and I were still climbing trees and having swimming competitions. Draw your own conclusions.
Sounds pretty good to me.
It does, but draw your own conclusions. To me, that's like an indicator of how popular culture can sometimes have quite a stifling effect on individual freedom and self-expression. And again, that's another thing that recurs throughout her works. So look, it's just clearly a sign of a writer still learning her craft. It's not, she does get better than this. It's still a good read, and it does feature a lot of her very beautiful prose that she's famous for. And I'll give you some examples of that later. But to give you a random example from this, and this one resonates with me in particular, if hope is a thing with feathers, then libraries are wings. So where's that from, if hope is a thing with feathers? Anyone know?
It's from a poem.
It is. Anyone know who the poet is?
It's by Emma something.
Close.
The last name.
American. Emily.
Hudgens.
Yeah, again, it's Emily Dickinson.
Emily Dickinson.
So she's the one who coined that phrase, and Katherine Rundell added to it, and she praised libraries.
I think she gets the image from George Herbert, though, doesn't she?
No, I don't think so. I think in this case, I mean, the direct quote in this book is, "If hope is a thing with feathers."
But
you mean Emily Dickinson?
Emily Dickinson gets the.
Does she? Oh, I thought it was her phrase. Okay, well, anyway. So, she built on the very famous Emily Dickinson quote, right? Like I said, I haven't got Rooftopers, unfortunately. But that came 2 years later, and again, it's kind of sticking to the theme of writing what you know, because this was based on her rooftop climbing interest. So the story there is Sophie, an orphan girl, found in an abandoned cello case at sea. And it's essentially her hunt to find her mother through the streets of first London and then Paris. Right, now this is one that I think some of you will know. So who's read Rooftopers? Right then, who would like to say what they thought of Rooftopers?
I really enjoyed it.
Why? Why did you really enjoy it? It is a great book, I agree. What did you like about it?
I thought it was really adventurous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's certainly that. It's very exciting, isn't it? Lots of scrapes going on. Yeah, okay. Who else would like to say what? Yes, Alyssa.
I really liked it, but I felt bad for the person who adopted her, because she spent the entire book looking for her mum, and he was right there.
You mean Charles?
Yeah. And, but he was also really supportive of her, of trying to help her find her mum.
He was. Now Charles is a very interesting character. I really like Charles. He's great. He's a brilliant character because he's quite an eccentric, but he's kind of. I think the way he's written, it feels like it's the father that Katherine Rundell wished she had in some ways. The way that he.
You're saying that she grew up in Zimbabwe. I wonder if there's somebody that he's based on, because he's black.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Of course, she went to Brussels, so.
True.
And yeah, but again, it would have been in the 1990s. She would have been there, or maybe early 2000s. Anyone else want to sort of say what they thought? What else did we like about it? Those who've read it. Ray, did you say you've read it? What did you like about it?
I'm not. I don't think I read the entire thing. I think it was in year 7 when we had to read
the extracts.
It. Yeah, and I think it was. I really wanted to read it, but then the thing is, I think we were reading the ending at that point.
Okay, so you know what happens in the end.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So I couldn't really read it because I already knew
we read the end for the exams, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I came then, so
okay.
I just read the end.
Okay, fair enough. Well, look, I mean, so we mentioned Charles, and he he epitomises a lot of things. So, when I talk about the girl savage and about how freedom is kind of stifled by social convention because, she has to join the teenage culture. Here, Charles, what he does, you may remember those who read it, he does things like write on the walls randomly. And he's very eccentric. He keeps a sort of gently anarchic house with books spilling everywhere, encourages creativity. But it's not only him, of course, there's also the rooftoppers. Or the street urchins in the sky, and they live a very unorthodox life of leaping from roof to roof. So yeah, it's also a very exciting adventure story. Yeah, it's because there is the story of her trying to find her lost mother, but they're also trying to evade the authorities who want to lock her away. And again, there's the very beautiful written prose. Unfortunately, I can't read you any because I don't have the book here. But what you take from it is, again, it's a sense of freedom because they are on these rooftops. They're not having to live little lives in little houses. The possibilities seem endless to them. They're standing on top of a roof and they've got the whole of Paris stretching before them.
And of course, it's the Parisian rooftops where so many, you get that fabulous panorama.
Yes, exactly. Now, that brings me on to our first little activity that I'm going to do with you all. So I'm going to split you into two teams here. Now, I was going to do this along age lines, but I don't think that's going to work. What I'll do, I'll just split you roughly down the middle. So Holly and Lucy here, everyone to the right of you, including you two, you're one team, and this is the other team. Okay, so I have got here's some Parisian rooftops. Now, what I've got, has anyone seen The Chase, the ITV quiz show? Yes. So for those of you who haven't, the way it works, you've got the regular contestant answering questions, and then you've got the chaser who has to catch them. And they start 2 steps back, or 3 steps back normally. What I'm going to do, so you guys, you're going to be Sophie. Okay? So that's you there, and you're 2 rooftops ahead of the team, the wicked police. From the orphanage, who are going to try and put you back in the orphanage who are chasing you, okay? And ask you a question, and all the questions are going to be on Paris. And if you get it right, then you move one along, then the same, and you move one along as well. Now, because I initially did this along age lines, I will say now these questions are going to be a bit easier for this team than that team. So let's see how it goes, okay? Are we ready?
Ready?
So, Sophie, here you are. What is the tallest building in Paris? You can talk about it, you don't have to... So it's 5 roofs to get home, or to escape the chasers.
Because especially these questions are supposed to be easy.
Don't overthink it. I'm going to give you a time. Yes, correct. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give you a 30-second time limit because we have a time limit. Okay, so the hunters. Your question now. These questions are hard. What was the original function of the Louvre before it became a national museum? I really was going to have all this answers. I was going to put you on one team as well, but I don't think that'll be fair.
I really know this because I take French.
I'm not going to hand it over because I want to give them a chance to stay in touch with you. Okay, 10, 9, 8.
Was it part of an original palace?
Yes, well done. It was the Royal Paris. So there you go. So you stay only 2 rooftops behind them. Right, younger students, as I've got written here, you're not younger students, but this team, what are you eating in Paris if you are eating escargot?
Oh, snails.
Yes, there we go. You move one along. There you go. This team, what is the name of the Phantom of the Opera? What is his name?
What? How am I supposed to know?
I've never read The Phantom of the Opera.
Anyone know over here?
What's his name?
Have I got an easier one?
You don't know.
I tell you what,
Can we have...
I'll ask you a different question. Paris's River Seine is the longest river in France. True or false?
I don't think it's the...
It's not the only river in
Is
France.
this like?
It's the one that goes through Paris.
Well, yes, I know that. But
Is it the longest? True or false?
yes, but is it just like? Hang on. The Seine is fully in France, but is this only counting rivers that are fully in France, or
Yes,
is this counting
yes.
ones that go?
Just think of what's in France.
Like,
Don't
not counting
don't
that go
overthink it.
outside
Just
of
think
France.
just think of what's inside of France.
So I'm going to just go... I think go, yeah.
True.
So true or false?
True.
True.
False. It's Loire. Okay, I'm going to switch them up now, so you're going to get a more difficult question this time. So, Who... Oh, no, I've messed this up a bit now. Ah, here we go. Complete the title of the following famous existential tract by Jean-Paul Sartre. Being and what? Complete the title of the following famous existential tract by Jean-Paul Sartre. Being and... Being, B-E-I-N-G. Being and...
Tomato sauce.
That's a book I would read.
Bean and tomato sauce, no.
And I give you 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2. Is that your final answer? No, it isn't. It's being a nothingness. But it's nice. That's nice and dark. Right, this team. Complete the title of the following famous book by Victor Hugo, The Hunchback of...
Notre Dame.
There we go. Well, yeah, I did say I'd give them some easy ones as well. Okay, well, it means you've gained a place in them. Look, you're only one rooftop behind them now. Okay? So, right, I'll switch them back over so you get the easy one again. Who was the brave... Well, actually, these might be both easy. Who was the brave little girl who went on a trip to a Parisian hospital in 1940s France, written by Ludwig Bemelmans? I'll give you a clue. It begins with M.
Oh, you must have.
I would have thought at least one of you would know this.
Cartoon as well.
Yeah, it was a cartoon too.
Is it like Heidi or something?
No, that's Switzerland. And I'm not going to give anything else away, and I'll give you another 10 seconds. Think of a French name that begins with M. That's all the clues.
You can eat them.
No, it's Madeline. It's Madeline. Okay, now maybe this one's easier. Who is the annoying Chicago woman who goes to Paris for a new job opportunity?
Emily.
Yes. Emily in Paris. Right.
Actually say annoying.
But she is. She is. Okay, right, okay. This is going to be the decider. So if you get this wrong, then you lose, essentially. So your question is, what is the name of the famous art museum where you can find the Mona Lisa? And your question is, which royal chateau is closest to Paris? Fontainebleau, Vincennes, or Versailles? Which one is geographically closest to Paris? Okay, and your answer?
Fontainebleau.
Wrong. It's Vincennes. So, Sophie escapes. So, well done. There you go. Right. Okay, back to Katherine Rundell. So, where was I? Okay, yeah, so the next one, and again, I don't have the book, is The Wolf Wilder. So, yeah, because I've got a copy, I can't really talk much about this one either. But this one, it's about a girl called Theodora, and she lives in the harsh wilds of Russia. And her mother is a wolf wilder. Now, what a wolf wilder is, essentially, think of someone who tames a wild animal. It's the opposite. It's someone who prepares a domesticated animal to be able to survive in the wild. Hence wilding a wolf. And of course, wolves are great majestic creatures, and they need to be able to, look after themselves if they're going to survive in the wild. So I won't say too much other than the main problem here is that the Russian army is threatening mother and daughter and they're wolf wilding. And, again, some parallels there, meddling authority like we saw in Rooftoppers. And again, it's a very exotic and vivid one, but it's very different. We think of Africa, it's in Russia, set in Russia. When, I think in sort of Stalinist Russia, if I remember correctly. So we're talking, 1950s, 1960s. And again, it's you think of Africa and how beautifully she writes about that. She also writes beautifully about this very Arctic-like place. So that's her next one. But again, I can't talk about it. But I can talk about The Explorer. Now, someone said they'd read this.
Me?
So tell me, what do you think of The Explorer?
Well, I like it.
Care to say a bit more than that?
You haven't read it.
So why do you like it so much?
Well, because it's like quite different because it's like surviving in the Amazon rainforest.
Yep.
I like the mystery on like who the explorer is.
Mm-hmm.
I also like Con.
One of the characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think it's quite nice to see the emotional journey she goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she starts out a bit stuck up. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Yeah, and then she ends it a lot better.
Mm-hmm. A journey of self-discovery. Good character development. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
No. Okay. Well, thank you. Alyssa, you got something to add?
Oh yeah, I read it like in year 5, so I can't really remember it. But all I do, Con was also my favourite character. But I remember throughout the book, I was really confused on like what the deal with the plane was, because none of them knew each other. But it was like, was it like a normal plane and just the kids survived?
Basically,
So
yes. She doesn't really go into that. Because I guess they do reveal some of their backstory, of course, but in terms of why they're on a plane,
There were too many people.
well, there's 4 children.
Yeah, but only the kids survived, so I was a bit confused.
Well, if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I read it, but I think there was only the pilot and the 4 kids, possibly. And of course, the pilot dies.
The mum was on it, and the mum died. I was so confused.
It's been a while.
I think it's like a private plane or something.
Yeah,
like
it is a private plane.
Yeah, so I was
It's a
just
privately
thinking
chartered
about
plane.
the the entire time.
But there's
She's
4
taking-
children.
She's taking the age-old.
Lord of the Flies.
No, well, not even that issue. It's the fact that children have to survive without adults.
Yeah.
It is Lord of the Flies, but it's also much older than that, isn't it?
It
quite-
is, and it's it's also a bit more optimistic than Lord of the Flies, I'd have to say, because of how the children grow, like Con does. So there's 4 main characters. I suppose Fred is kind of, if you had to pick one main character, it's Fred, but actually they're all important. And the Explorer is the Explorer of the title, and he's an interesting, enigmatic character as well. It's more optimistic because the kids do better than they do in Lord of the Flies. And it's got a more optimistic view of human nature, really. And again, it's another adventure, so she does adventure very well. Because obviously there's jungle survival, there's the Explorer, there's some ruins as well. It's like, what's all that about? So I was going on about how her prose is beautiful. So I'm actually going to read you the opening. Well, not the very opening, but the beginning in the plane, and that might answer the question about who's on the plane actually. So right, where are we? So the airfield they had just left had been dusty and almost deserted, just a strip of tarmac under the ferocious Brazilian sun. Fred's cousin had insisted that he wear his school uniform and cricket jumper, and now, inside the hot, airless cabin, he felt like he was being gently cooked inside his own skin. The engine gave a whine, and the pilot frowned and tapped the joystick. He was old and soldierly, with brisk nostril hair and a grey waxed moustache, which seemed to reject the usual laws of gravity. He touched the throttle, and the plane soared upwards, higher into the clouds. It was almost dark when Fred began to worry. The pilot began to belch, first quietly, then violently and repeatedly. His hand jerked and the plane dipped suddenly to the left. Someone screamed behind Fred. The plane lurched away from the river and over the canopy. The pilot grunted, gasped, and wound back the throttle, slowing the engine. He gave a cough that sounded like a choke. Fred stared at the man. He was turning the same shade of grey as his moustache. "Are you all right, sir?" he asked. "Is there something I can do?" Fighting for breath, the pilot shook his head. He reached over to the control panel and cut the engine. The roar ceased. The nose of the plane dipped downwards. The trees rose up. "What's happening?" asked the blonde girl sharply. "What's he doing? Make him stop!" The little boy in the back began to shriek. The pilot grasped Fred's wrist hard for a single moment, then his head slumped against the dashboard, and the sky, which had seconds before seemed so reliable, gave way.
But it doesn't say if it was just them.
No, it doesn't, but it's all about the setup of the story.
I think it is
Yeah.
just them, though, isn't it?
I think it is. The implication is it just is, but again, it's that is a really powerful opening. And you can see some really great language and some really vivid senses there going on. Sorry.
Ask, like, why is he told to wear his school uniform?
Well, that's kind of revealed a bit later on. Yeah?
Also, does it reveal what happened to the guy? Because I can't remember, like, why did the guy die?
The pilot? Oh, no, the pilot.
Quite often people in their travel used to wear their smartest clothes, so, and also school uniforms are quite practical quite often.
Yeah, can you agree?
Cricket jumpers are cosy.
They are, yeah, especially
I wouldn't want to wear
if
my
it's a bit of
school
cold
uniform
summer
on
day.
a plane. I prefer
No,
to,
not
be
now.
something
No,
comfortable.
you wouldn't now.
Right, next activity, folks. So, yes.
I really want to read it.
Good. See, it's a great opening, isn't it? Yeah, and it's a very exciting story. So, right, seeing as we just talked about that, it's time for some jungle survival. Right, so your plane, and again, you're going to be in the teams that you were in before, okay? Your plane has crashed in the Amazon. You are trapped and only have a few basic items, and an all-consuming fire is raging. So you run out of the plane, and you're in the jungle, okay?
The plane's on fire?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can't get back in it. So you're stuck out in the jungle. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give one scenario to you, and then one scenario for both teams. Okay, so the scenario for you is you hear a growling sound and a tiger is nearby. What do you do?
Defend it.
Talk about it.
Defend it.
Befriend him. I'd like to know how you befriend him.
They can climb and they can swim and they can walk. So basically, just let yourself.
Is that your first? That's your first thought, is it? Okay, now I know how you'd survive in the jungle. I tell you what, I'm going to give you yours. Yours is you find a river which you need to cross, but it's full of crocodiles. What do you do? Talk. Have a chat.
Do we have a rope?
They can climb.
No,
They're better at climbing.
you don't have a rope. You only got like a few basic things. I don't remember. You might have done. If they ever. Yeah. I'll have to reread the description. Now you mention it. Okay. I'll have a look. Well, I can't now. Okay, right. Let's hear it then. So this team, Tiger. How do we deal with the Tiger situation?
Okay, so we're gonna stand in front of the plane.
The plane that's on fire. Okay.
The dead bodies, and then it will charge at the plane and burn up.
So we're gonna be distracted with the dead bodies from the wreck because they're already dead. So
I see. You're going to feed the dead body to the tiger.
But we're also gonna lead the tiger towards the.
Okay, so
burning
sacrificing. That's what you said.
plane.
You
And
did.
then when they see us, they're gonna run towards us and we're gonna dodge and they're gonna go into the burning plane.
And then it will be cooked. So
And
Well,
then
you
we
could
can
always
eat it.
quote Blake at them, "Tiger, tiger, burning bright." You know, in the forest of the night, you could mesmerise them with that.
exactly, poetry to keep us going. You know?
Well done, Hannah, for agreeing. Okay, so that's an interesting high risk solution, right? So what about the crocodiles in the river?
Number of ideas. So
Just give me one, the best
that's
one.
hard.
Well, you're gonna have to choose one. You've only got time to do one in the moment. You can't say, "Let's try this one. If it doesn't work, we'll try that one." You've only got time to do one. Come on, I need to hear it.
She wants to swing on the tree like a monkey.
Okay, listen. Say again, please.
So I want to like plant loads of twigs together, like somehow attach them together. For example,
Are
planting.
we listening?
And then, or like plant vines together, and then use it sort of like as a rope and just swing across the river.
What Tarzan like?
Plaiting vines. I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Of the two solutions, I think I kind of prefer that one. Right. This one's for both teams. So it's getting dark and you need to build a shelter. Describe how you'd make one using what's around you. Go. You're in a jungle. You're in a jungle.
Climb myself onto the tree.
I'm going to give you 1 minute.
So you don't want to be like on the ground.
Moss.
We don't want up the trees in the hole, but they're also and the shade.
Yeah, the thing is, year 7, they did their wilderness and they built a shelter. So this should be tailor-made for them, really.
Vines like they
The thing
did.
is, we've only actually got 1 year right here. So Rhea should be best. Oh, no, Rhea's year 9.
I should pull them
No, the first year we did it was last year. So actually none of them have done it. Oh, activity week. Yes, that's right. They do. Okay, let's see if they can remember. I might remind them. Okay, right, time's up. I did say I'd only give you 1 minute. Over here, please. Quiet, please. So, now before I go any further, Miss Huntley and I were just discussing that if it's year 8 activity week, you would have built a shelter, those of you who went to wherever it was, in Northamptonshire. So,
We built a shelter at PGL too.
Uh-huh.
there we go then. So year 7. Right, this team. What have we decided to build and how? Describe it to me.
Oh, okay. So, basically, you get vines. And
Yes.
You get twigs. When there's sticks, and then you like.
You can like
You crochet.
Okay, I don't.
No, it actually is.
I know exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So do I.
With the vines, and then
Yeah.
you climb a tree. You tie yourself onto the tree with a bunch of vines, like in the Hunger Games, or what Katniss does, but she does it with ropes. But you do it with vines because that's all you got. And then you like cover yourself with the blanket so like no one can see you, but you don't want to be on the ground because that's where the spiders are. So.
Okay.
And knitting's good for your work.
Yeah, I suppose the camouflage aspect is a useful thing,
okay.
possibly. Right, okay, over here, what have we got?
Can spiders not climb?
Yeah, they can. So, what's your solution?
Okay. We said we should,
Girls listening, please.
we said we should make a base, so we put down some leaves and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then we put down more leaves where we would be sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
and then we take some trees, shorter, weaker trees around us,
Mm-hmm.
and we tie it together with the vines that we used to cross the Crocodile River.
More than one
so
use.
That we have some form of shelter.
Mm-hmm.
We cover that with some more leaves, so shelter if it rains,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have a wonderful little teepee type thing.
Okay. I think we have a clear winner of this challenge. So, well done. Thank you. All right, so moving on. Right, Good Thieves is next. The Good Thieves. Good title, this. Good Thieves. Anyone read this one? Yes, actually. What did you think, Alyssa?
Oh, I liked it. I can't really remember it. I read all her books in like year 5. Wasn't there something about a ring got stolen and so they stole it back?
Yes,
Was there-
essentially, yeah.
Was there?
I'm not sure it's a ring, but it's certainly a precious heirloom, yeah.
Oh, I think that was like a party or something, but I can't actually remember. I thought it was good though. I knew that.
Okay. Ria, what can you remember?
I read it a long time ago too.
Okay.
But then I really liked it. I remember they were doing something for like someone in their family, like the main character's
Yes,
family.
it's Vita, and it's her grandfather,
Yeah.
who's been scammed, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh.
But then
Tell you more in a minute.
I don't really remember much. But all I remember is that I really, really liked it.
Okay, good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. So it's at first glance, it's kind of like, you know, I haven't even seen Hustle, Fanny. You know, the TV series where they're all scam artists, but they're doing it for the right reasons. It's a bit like that, only with kids as the. And yeah, so Vita is the main character, and her grandfather, I can't remember his name, Jack. Her grandfather Jack has been scammed by a notorious con artist, and he's lost his very, very precious family heirloom, and she bands together with a bunch of other spunky do-gooding kids to get it back, thieve it back. Hence the title, The Good Thieves. It's set in New York as well. I don't know if you can tell that from the cover. 1920s New York. Okay. So now, because this is Rundell, it's more than just a glorified episode of Hustle. So Vita's allies are very unorthodox and unusual. There's a pickpocket, but there's also some circus performers, circus acrobats. Okay. And because of that, the skills they use, they can pool their resources to get the ring back. It's also set in the 1920s, like I said. Now, anyone who's done history of early 20th century USA, has anyone done any sort of history of 1920s boom and bust time?
I did early Germany. That's what
Weimar Germany, Weimar Republic. So
and we know kind of what it is in relation to the US.
There will be.
So there will be some definitely global issues.
It's coming after just before half term when we start Mockingbird.
Right. So basically, 1920s USA, but also 1920s Germany and around the world, there was a great financial crash, and there was a Great Depression, the Wall Street crash. That's the one, and there was a lot of economic inequality. Also, there was also lots of racism because there was quite a big African American population, and so as well as this, as you know, the heist story, Katherine Rundell explores these big society issues. Economic inequality and racism, and there's a really great line I've written down here. Racism can't be cured by black excellence when it's caused by white ignorance. So yeah, so for all the escapism in his story, she does make sure she does talk about real issues as well. She's not just flight of fancy stuff, she does also talk about real things too. Very important to point that out. And then the last children's book she wrote, this is her most recent one. Has anyone read this one? No? Okay, so this is Impossible Creatures, and the title very much says what this book is. It's about fantastical, weird, wonderful, impossible creatures in a fantastical world. And what she's done, so at the start of the book, oh yeah, by the way, this is a signed copy that we have here. At the front of the book, she's got her the Guardian's Vestry. So these are all the impossible creatures. So there are some that you will have heard of, for instance, a centaur. But then there's some ones you won't have heard of, like an almirage, which is horned hares of dazzling beauty. And then we've got a boromet, which is a vegetable lamb. The boromet grows from a green stalk, which is tethered by a tendril. Okay. Then, you know, there's a griffin, there's a dragon, but then there's a hippocamp. Hippocamps are seahorses of the ocean. And they're like proper horses.
That's a literal seahorse.
So how does she spell Griffin?
Griffin, the usual way, Griffin. So, yeah, so, there's a lot of wonderful creatures. So think about what I said about the Emily Dickinson quote earlier. So she is using things that do exist from myth and legend, but she then builds her own imaginative slant on it, and she gilds it in a very effortless way. And it's just, you just believe it. So this is a great book. It's probably her best one. Not many people know about it yet because it's her newest. But it is drawing comparisons to the likes of Narnia. I think of all the wonderful creatures there. His Dark Materials, I'm sure we've got a lot of fans of his Dark Materials here, right? And it's it's very similar to that too, because as well as it being a fantastical world that sort of and multiple dimensions as well, like his Dark Materials, children are very much the focal points of it. In a way that they are in Narnia and his Dark Materials, because it's a magical world where humans and mythical creatures live side by side, but the main children characters are the ones who have the fate of the world in their hands. They're the ones who control a destiny. They're hugely important. Okay, so big themes and ideas, but very appealing to children, I'm sure. Okay, right. So for our next activity, I'm going to keep this one a bit simpler. So you're going to be in two teams. We're going to have a straightforward fight between. You choose a creature each. Okay, so I'm going to list this team and I'll give you 1 minute. I'm going to pass you the book. Flick through. So the bestiary is about 7 or 8 pages long. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to pick a creature of your choice. And you got 1 minute. They can only pick one and then you get to pick.
Okay, not
There's
the
loads
one
of
that's a
animals.
literal
Don't worry.
vegetable.
You're so competitive, aren't you?
Really?
Really?
They're not all the way through this, only at the start.
I'm really, really sorry.
You've used about half your time, by the way, so...
Okay, so
Hurry up, make a decision.
not the mole, that looks
I would love to give you longer, but we've only got so much time,
Oh,
Or dragon. Does that breathe fire?
okay,
Chimera
no, but it has
breathes
like a
fire.
snake and a lion, so...
Chimera breathes fire. What about
10 seconds.
Chimera?
Make a decision.
Manticores can fly.
5, 4, 3, 2... Got one?
Manticore.
Manticle. Okay, right. This team, your turn. You can have any creature apart from the manticle. Pick any one you like.
Wait, that was the manticore.
This one can still.
That's the
That's the manticore.
Do you want me to keep it there?
What? Do you keep this one?
What is that? That is right.
It's a dead unicorn.
Oh,
A dead unicorn.
Mummy.
Okay, 10 seconds.
Find it. It's not there. Where's my? That's not a dragon. That's a flying house. Go for the dead unicorn.
Have you got all the things not that bad?
Look, it can
Okay, ready?
I have a
Carcadan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can I have the book back, please?
There's a dragon right there. This is a dragon.
Okay, so what was it? You've chosen the...
Carcadan.
Okay, right. Okay, so we've got the Carcadan versus the Manticore, was it?
What's the Carcadan?
All right, so the Carcadan resembles a unicorn but has a vicious soul and canine teeth. One of the few creatures in the archipelago who kill for sport as well as food, sounds very aggressive, eats meat, prefers human flesh and grass for digestion. The hide of the Carcadan ranges from pure black to purple and the skin sags from their bones. The horn is black and the tip carries a poison which can cause agonizing gangrene, paralysis and death. You can kept at bay with the horn of a unicorn, but you're extremely unlikely to have a unicorn to hand that is frankly of limited help. Sounds very dangerous. Right, that versus the Manticore has the tail of a scorpion, the face of a human, the teeth and body of a lion, and the personality of a self-righteous politician. This sounds dangerous. Some subspecies are winged. Manticores, like Carcadans, are one of the very few creatures who will attack humans on sight, even when not in need of food. They lie and kill for the pleasure of it. They smell of decay. Right, so now you know what you're up against, both of you. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to come up with a battle plan to beat your opponent. Go.
Eat them. Chop off their heads because they have the horn there. So chop off their heads.
Sting them, eat a
Yeah, but they have a horn that paralyses.
Right then, Sunday.
Are
Are you feeling a bit left out? That you're not...
Good idea.
I would have had you join in if Mr. Stone was here, perhaps. You, Mr. Stone, could have had an animal. I'm going to move on to John Donne in a minute. Don't worry.
So you have to go like up
All right, 10 seconds.
I think my one's really.
Oh yeah,
Make it
then
raw.
it might like.
That's a good point, and they can't see you.
Are we
can't they?
shooting the poison down the
Okay, right, this team. Both teams, if I could have you back with me now. So this team, how are we going to take down the Carcadan? Tell me.
Okay, so we're going to approach from behind.
Yes.
We sting with our scorpion tail.
Yes.
And then we bite off their body.
Okay.
Not their head, because their head would
Just leave her head
paralyse us.
left.
Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
Until they
Okay.
They die.
Right, this
Are we
team.
allowed to come up from behind?
This team. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you are a horse, and horses are notorious for, kicking. Or unicorn, but notorious for kicking things
far
behind
away.
them.
Eat their feet first.
Yes,
Eat
but
their
horses
feet
can
first.
kick from the
You'll
back.
just come up to our tail.
Okay. Right, so this team, what's our plan for taking down the Manticore?
Well, we thought, how was the manticore beaten the first time in Greek mythology? It had a block of charcoal stuffed down its throat.
Okay, let them talk. They let you talk. Let them talk.
And then, so first we thought we're going to run around in circles, disorientate it, make it raw, so very dizzy, and then we're going to shoot poison down its throat so it dies.
Okay, well, extra points for referring to Greek mythology there, I think.
I feel like that doesn't.
This is a tough one.
You can't reverse Greek
The
mythology.
Carcadan is
I think I'll have to think about this one. It's not an easy decision. Both decent plans there, so I'll have a think. All right, okay, well done everyone. That was some very quick thinking, quick creative thinking. All right, so on to adult books now. Now this one is an adult book because it might look at the first glance like a children's book, but it's actually why you as an adult should read children's books. This is the book to give to your parents for Christmas. Okay, because it's aimed at adults and telling them why they should read children's books, because a lot of them will tell you that they don't read children's books anymore. Okay, and have any of you heard the line, you must have done, from an adult, well, you're a bit too old to be reading that now.
Yes.
You shouldn't be reading that anymore. Direct them towards this book. Okay, now she doesn't, see what she's not saying, I want to emphasize, she's not saying that you should only read children's books. Let's make that clear. But what she's saying is that you should not think that children's books are inferior because they've got great things to say, not least her own books, right? But she does cite loads of great children's books from history. I'm not going to go into the detail because we're kind of running out of time of it, but she says that, if you believe in a linear progress of narrative and you think that all I should be doing is progressing on to more and more sophisticated books, then when you come to the end of your life, all you got to comfort you are things like Being a Nothingness by Jean-Paul Sartre, right? Rather than Impossible Creatures. Okay, so yeah, Miss Huntley and I, when we talk about our favourite books, a lot of them are books that we from our younger days. So, and I'm sure, and I hope it will be the same for you when you
And
get
also, you
older.
should still be open to authors that you loved as a child, who might still be writing, reading them. I mean, Joan Aiken.
Yeah, you were reading Joan Aiken.
I was reading new books by her.
Yeah.
I read them first when I was a teenager, but new books that have been reprinted. Huge numbers of books have been reprinted recently for a much bigger market than when I was a child. So it makes a difference.
Yeah, we are living in a golden age of children's fiction, as I've already said multiple times. Right, okay, so on to Super Infinite then. Now this is a great book. It won the Bailey Gifford Prize, which is the best non-fiction book. And so it is a biography of the great metaphysical poet John Donne. I say metaphysical poet, but that kind of does him a disservice. He was a member of Parliament, he was a preacher, he was an adventurer, he was a lawyer. He lived many lives. He lived a life and a half. And he essentially, as well as like dabbling in work, he lived multiple lives. He was a very rebellious and orthodox kind of man. He was a proper Renaissance man. He deserves his own Litsoc. Unfortunately, I've only got a few minutes, so what can I say? I guess I should really focus on what Katherine Rundell has to say about him, really. And I think, essentially, why did she write a thesis on him? I think it's because she sees very much a kindred spirit in John Donne. Especially, I was talking about her beautiful language, and I'll give you an example from The Explorer. She sees language as a set of possibilities and not rules. language can help us see the world in a different way and go beyond the way we're taught to think about things. Okay, so yeah, he was all about shaking up. So yeah, courtly poetry of the day was very smooth, regulated, and he was all about breaking down those barriers and writing better poems. So he sort of was a rebel in that sense. Now the reason this book is called Super Infinite is because we all know what the idea of the infinite is. He thinks that humans can transcend the infinite and go and self-actualize and realize themselves in ways that we can't really comprehend in our everyday thoughts. And he wanted to show that there's more to humanity than we would like to believe. Now he was very critical of humanity. He was very warts and all. He didn't dress it up. He said that we should celebrate all our complexities. So the possibilities are endless, but the quality of those possibilities are what's key for John Donne, I think. I'm doing a very crude summary here in a few minutes, but that's what I get out of Donne. I think that's what Katherine Rundell gets out of Donne as well. I'll read a little bit to you from towards the end when she talks about why Donne matters so much. He is at times almost impossible to understand, but in repayment for your work, he reveals images that stick under your skin until you die. Donne suggests you look at the world with more awe and more scepticism, that you weep for it and that you gasp for it. In order to do so, you shake yourself out of cliché and out of the constraints of what the world would sell you. Your love is almost certainly not like a flower nor a dove. Why would it be? It may be like a pair of compasses. It may be like a flea. His startling timelessness is down to the fact that he had the power of unforeseeability. You didn't see him coming. I'm going to skip ahead a bit. On his deathbed, facing down what he imagined to be the end of everything he had known, this is what he most urgently wanted to tell. We, slapdash chaotic humanity, persistently underestimate our effect on other people. It is our necessary lie, but he refused to tell it. In a world so harsh and beautiful, it is from each other that we must find purpose, else there is none to be had. Does anyone know what the most famous line in John Donne's poetry is? Which kind of sums up what that is there. It's no man is an island. No man is an island. We all need each other. We're all interconnected. And Katherine Rundell, a bit of trivia, when she won the Baillie Gifford Prize for this, she embodied this by giving away the prize money she won and splitting it between two charities, an ocean conservation charity and a refugee charity. And when she asked why she did this, she simply said, no man is an island. By which she meant, she is sharing in her success and spreading it to the world. So there's another reason to love Katherine Rundell. Yeah, not a selfish person. Right, so for our last activity, I'm going to do something called, very catchily, John Donne, Choose Your Own Adventure. So what that means is, you are John Donne, and you're going to do this collectively, okay? The year is 1596, and you are John Donne. And, tired of your life in law, you would like to try your hand at a life of adventure. Since the Spanish Armada, you're all familiar with the Spanish Armada? Yeah? So since that was defeated in 1588, rumours have abounded that Spain is planning to invade again. A preemptive counter-strike has been planned, and you have signed up for the chance to do some good for your country and, you hope, make your fortune. John Donne was constantly in search of money in his life, by the way. I should point that out. On the voyage over, one of your fellow passengers seems to be sick with some sort of disease and is attracting fleas. Do you, A, help him as best you can by alerting the ship's surgeon and providing first aid until the surgeon arrives, or B, contemplate how the flea is a metaphor for your beloved and observe the fleas on the sailor so that you can write a poem about it? What do you do, A or B? Have a chat. This is my way of educating them about John Donne.
Poetry's going to live on. If I had to write a poem, I would not write it about.
Each man's death diminishes me.
Yes. Yeah, so it should be A. But it's not. Okay, right. What do we think? Miss Annie made a really good point just now. But what do we... So hands up for A. And hands up... So A was like help him, and B was write a poem. So A and B. Well done, good girls. All right, next. A few days later, and the Spanish port of Cadiz is in sight. Close to your ship is a small island that your bosun thinks would be an ideal spot to weigh anchor prior to the attack. Just as your ship pulls alongside the shore, the waves get particularly choppy, and you wonder if it will be safe. The bosun orders you to drop anchor anyway. Do you, A, do as he says, or B, tell him that no man is an island and go and write another poem? Decide, A or B.
Yeah, we're agree.
I think we're a bit more emphatic. Okay, anyone want to do as he says? And who wants to go and write a poem? Some people are not committing. Are you going to do as the bosun tells you? You've only got 2. Yes? Okay, so let's, one more time. Hands up for A. And hands up for B. Ooh, I think, 1, 2, 3. I think that's just about A. Just, okay. Right. And lastly, the invasion of Cadiz has finally started. Your chance to be a hero. Your fleet launches a massive cannon attack on the ships moored at the port, and it's a tremendous success. But your humanity and conscience is troubled by the sight of so many Spanish sailors suffering in the raging fires and hopelessly plunging into the sea. The battle is clearly won by your side, England, and you helping the desperate Spaniards or not will make no difference to the final outcome. So, do you, A, heroically help as many Spanish sailors as you can and call upon your crewmates to do the same, or B, weep in anguish at the cruel nature of war and go and write another poem? What do you do?
I feel like every time, like, write another poem.
I feel like I would
Yeah,
write
I
a
really
poem
bet
about how I was so heroic.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
The secret history when it's like the Metro Henley.
Did I hear the secret history mentioned again?
Yeah.
Nonsense essay.
All right, let's hear it then. So, who wants to help the Spanish sailors? Oh, that's pretty emphatic. Anyone want to write a poem?
Millie, have you got, what would you do?
I would do A.
You do A, right, okay.
Okay, right, so, mostly A's. You are truly a noble and heroic person, but at the cost of your own life. The world will never know the great poetry of John Donne, and therefore Katherine Rundell is never inspired to become an author. How sad. If you had gone for mostly B's, congratulations. Your introspective cowardice has resulted in some of the finest poetry ever created, and Katherine Rundell will go on to be a great children's author as a result. Miss Huntley, could you just say what you said to me when they were talking? Because I think they should hear that.
I said that, for the first question, I said that the person who wrote, and it's actually a sermon that he said this in, "No man is on an island, each man's death diminishes me," would have saved or the person with the flea bites, because of course you can die from blood poisoning from flea bites in those days.
You could have died from any of those scenarios.
Whereas the much younger man would have written the poem.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
But we were saying
paradox,
that when he was there, he would have done B's. Not that he did, of course. That these were invented scenarios, but he might have died, and then we wouldn't have got. He might have written some poetry by 1596, but he wouldn't be the well-known poet he is today, and therefore we wouldn't have got Katherine Rundell. So So there you go. Right, so I'll finish up then. So I've talked a lot about what some of the things in their work. To me, the most important thing about here, there is the language, there is the interconnectedness stuff that I was talking about, but it's how there's kind of like a frisson of rebellion in her works. Okay, she talks about upending convention. Or the shield, by using it subtly, like the shield of metaphor, which is what she describes John Donne's work as.
This book on John Donne it broke a huge amount of boundary, because the voice that she writes in is not that of a critical critic.
No.
Or an English language professor or English literature professor or English literature scholar. So there were a lot of reviews that were really quite anti it.
Well, but on the other hand, lots of praise. Matt Haig, Marina Hyde, Dan Snow. Lots of great adult authors, basically.
Yeah.
So ignore the academics. But anyway, yes. So when I say rebellion, I want to emphasise this, because I think sometimes when we think of rebellion, we think of at its worst. What happened in up in Southport, for instance. Rebellion is not about, at least in her mind, it's not about smashing things up or hurting other people or being destructive or disrespecting other people in general. It's more in line of what great writers of fiction in general do, which is push at the limits of language to show you that a better world is possible. And that is what John Donne did, and that's what Katherine Rundell does beautifully. I'm just going to quote Bruce Springsteen, who's another person I admire. In the end, nobody wins unless everybody wins, because no man is an island. Okay? So very life-affirming message, very great stories, and she is destined for greatness if indeed she isn't there already. So there you go. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Excellent.
Okay, so next week we are going to be talking, because it's MFL week here at school, we're going to be talking about examples of French, Spanish and German literature in particular, but it can be any European literature, I think.
Yeah.
So think of something, bring along something to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so we say bye to the camera. Bye. Bye. Bye.